Emma Calloway's hands trembled as she stared at her laptop screen. The DNA test results she'd ordered on a whim, a simple curiosity about her heritage, now revealed a truth so devastating it stole her breath. "This can't be right," she whispered. The screen displayed not just her ethnic breakdown, but connections to 17 people labeled as close genetic matches, half-siblings she never knew existed. 17 strangers who shared approximately 25% of her DNA. 17 lives connected through a secret that was never meant to be discovered. The truth that would destroy dozens of families was hidden in plain sight, tucked away in genetic code, waiting for science to catch up to a decades-old deception. What if the very doctor who promised to help create your family was secretly making himself the father of your children? Emma scrolled through the profiles, her stomach tightening as the pattern emerged. Each half-sibling had been conceived through fertility treatments at the same clinic, Langston Fertility Center, the prestigious facility where her own parents had sought help over 2 decades ago. Have you ever wondered how much trust you place in medical professionals? What would you do if that trust was betrayed in the most intimate way possible? For thousands of couples, Dr. Victor Langston represented hope, their last chance at parenthood after years of heartbreak. His gentle demeanor and confident smile reassured desperate families as they placed their futures in his hands. They trusted him completely, never questioning the contents of the vials he prepared or the procedures he performed. They never imagined he was creating a secret biological legacy, one patient at a time. Emma closed her laptop, her mind racing. This wasn't just her story anymore. Dozens of families would have their foundations shaken when they discovered the truth. Children would question their identities. Parents would face an unthinkable violation of trust. And somewhere, Dr. Victor Langston was still practicing medicine, still trusted by countless patients who had no idea what he'd done. Emma made her decision. The truth needed to come out, no matter how many lives it upended, including her own. Before we continue this shocking true story, if this kind of medical betrayal interests you, hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Trust me, what happened to these families will make you question everything you thought you knew about medical ethics. Dr. Victor Langston stood at the podium, accepting yet another Medical Pioneer Award amid thunderous applause. At 58, his silver-streaked hair and refined demeanor exuded authority and wisdom. With over 3 decades of experience, he built a reputation as one of the nation's foremost fertility specialists. "Every child born through our center represents a miracle," he told the audience, his voice warm with practiced sincerity. "And we're privileged to help families experience that miracle every day." The Langston Fertility Center occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming high-rise in the heart of downtown. Its reception area featured modern furnishings, soothing music, and walls adorned with hundreds of baby photos. Visual testimonials to Dr. Langston's claimed 78% success rate, far exceeding the national average. Medical journals published his research. Universities invited him to lecture. Waiting lists for appointments stretched 6 months. Couples traveled across the country, sometimes internationally, seeking his expertise. "There's no one I trust more than Dr. Langston," one mother told a documentary crew filming a segment on medical innovators. "He gave us our son when no one else could help us." Among the newest patients at the clinic were Olivia and Marcus Bennett. Married for 7 years, they had endured 4 miscarriages and 2 failed IVF attempts at other facilities. Olivia, a kindergarten teacher whose classroom walls featured her students' artwork, but none from children of her own, had begun to lose hope. "This is our last try," she told Marcus as they sat in Langston's waiting room. "I can't keep doing this to my body, to us." Marcus squeezed her hand. At 37, he worked as a physical therapist, helping others recover from injuries while privately battling the emotional wounds of infertility. "I understand. Whatever happens, we're in this together." When Dr. Langston called them into his office, his confidence was immediate and reassuring. "Your previous treatments failed because they weren't personalized," he explained, reviewing their file. "My approach is different. I designed custom protocols for each couple." He outlined a treatment plan involving specialized donor material that he personally selected for compatibility. "I have a feeling about you too," he said, smiling. "I think we're going to make a beautiful family together." The Bennetts left the appointment with something they hadn't felt in years: genuine hope. They had no idea that Dr. Langston's words contained a terrible, literal truth. If this story of medical betrayal interests you, Hit the like button and subscribe to Mr. Body Crime for more shocking true stories that expose the darkest depths of human deception. Leave a comment about how far you think medical professionals should be trusted with our most personal decisions. After his clinic closed each evening, Dr. Langston would return to his private laboratory. The space, accessible only with his keycard, contained equipment not listed in any official inventory. Here, away from security cameras and staff oversight, his true work occurred. For over 25 years, Dr. Langston had been replacing anonymous donor sperm with his own. What began as a stopgap measure during a donor shortage in the early days of his practice evolved into a calculated routine. When patients requested donor material, the vials he prepared often contained his genetic material instead. Superior genetics deserve to propagate, he wrote in a password-protected journal kept on an encrypted drive. My IQ of 148, perfect health record, and exceptional memory represent ideal traits. Why settle for random donors when I can provide certainty? This wasn't merely practical thinking to Dr. Langston. It was a mission. He saw himself not as deceiving patients but elevating them, gifting them with genetic material they would choose if they truly understood quality. In his mind, he was doing these families a favor. They come to me desperate and broken, another journal entry read. I repair not just their ability to conceive but their genetic future. They'll never know, but their children will be extraordinary because of me. His process was methodical. Each substitution was documented in a coded system within patient files, a simple, innocuous notation that meant nothing to his staff but allowed him to track every child conceived with his DNA. He maintained two sets of records, official ones for the clinic and private logs tracking his biological children. The laboratory techs never questioned why Dr. Langston insisted on personally handling certain samples. His authority was absolute, his reputation beyond reproach. When he claimed special processing techniques as the secret behind his success rates, everyone believed him. Procedures must be followed exactly as I specify, he frequently reminded his staff. This is why our patients succeed when other clinics fail them. Year after year, his biological children multiplied across the city, the state, eventually the country. Children who looked nothing like their fathers but might share surprising similarities with each other. A certain shaped nose. Distinctive eyebrows. A remarkable aptitude for mathematics. By 2022, Dr. Langston's private records indicated he was the biological father to over 70 children, each conceived without the knowledge or consent of the mothers or their partners. 70 lives connected by DNA they didn't know they shared. At home, Dr. Langston kept a map marked with small pins indicating where his children lived. He collected newspaper clippings of their achievements, academic honors, athletic victories, music recitals, taking pride in accomplishments he could never publicly claim. They're thriving because of me, he told his reflection. This is my true legacy. He never considered that modern technology would eventually expose his deception. DNA testing was becoming accessible and popular. His biological children were growing up, becoming curious about their origins. The clock was ticking on his decades of deception. Langston had no idea his carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Emma Calloway had always known she was conceived through artificial insemination. Her parents had been open about their fertility struggles and their gratitude to the doctor who had helped bring her into the world. The DNA test was supposed to be a fun exploration of her heritage. Perhaps she discovered distant relatives or unexpected ancestry. Instead, it revealed a shocking reality. After the initial shock of seeing 17 half-sibling matches, Emma's analytical mind took over. As a graduate student in bioethics, she understood the implications immediately. This wasn't a technical error. The genetic relationships were too specific, the DNA segments too substantial. With trembling fingers, she messaged one match, a woman named Lily who lived just 30 miles away. I think we need to talk, Emma wrote. This connection between us isn't a coincidence. Within days, Emma and Lily met at a quiet cafe. The resemblance between them was subtle but unmistakable, the same eye shape, similar mannerisms, identical laughs. My parents used Langston Fertility Center in 1998, Lily revealed. Did yours? Emma nodded, her suspicions crystallizing into certainty. 1999, they reached out to other matches together, creating a private online group called The Genetic Connection. Each new member brought the same story, conception through assisted reproduction at Langston Fertility Center. Jason, a software engineer, joined next. I've identified 23 of us so far, he explained during their first video call. Based on birth years, the pattern spans from 1992 to 2017. Soon, weekly video meetings became their ritual. Members shared baby photos, medical histories, and personality traits. The similarities were increasingly evident: unusual allergies, distinctive cognitive patterns, even specific mannerisms that couldn't be explained by nurture alone. "Whatever's happening here goes beyond coincidence," said Mia, a physician who had joined the group. "The statistical probability of this many half-siblings from supposed different donors is essentially zero." Their discussions grew more focused as the group expanded to 30 members. "We need to consider the possibility that the same donor was used for all of us," suggested Tyler, an attorney who specialized in medical malpractice, "which would violate every standard protocol in fertility medicine." Emma voiced what others hadn't dared. Or someone at the clinic was substituting samples. The group fell silent as the implication hung in the digital space between them. "If that's true," Lily said finally, "we need proof." They began a methodical investigation. Members requested their medical records from Langston Fertility Center. They compiled a database tracking conception dates, donor ID numbers, and clinic staff involved in each procedure. A pattern emerged. Every member of their group had been personally treated by Dr. Victor Langston. "Let's compare official donor descriptions with our actual traits," Emma suggested. Their findings were disturbing. The physical characteristics described in donor files matched neither their appearances nor their genetic health markers. The group's suspicions solidified into a horrifying theory. "We need DNA from Dr. Langston," Tyler said during one tense meeting. "Without it, we're just speculating." Emma stared at the faces filling her screen, 30 strangers who were her closest biological relatives. People whose existence challenged everything she understood about her origins. "We deserve the truth," she said quietly, "no matter how difficult it might be." The half-siblings agreed to take action. What began as a casual DNA test was evolving into a full-scale investigation that would rock the medical establishment and change dozens of lives forever. Comment below if you've ever used a DNA test kit, or if you would after hearing this story. Have you ever discovered something unexpected about your family through genetic testing? Our next section reveals how these half-siblings found an unexpected ally inside the very clinic that had deceived them. Clara Hastings had worked at Langston Fertility Center for 23 years. As head nurse, she prided herself on maintaining the highest ethical standards. Patients trusted her gentle demeanor and encyclopedic knowledge of reproductive medicine. Staff relied on her meticulous attention to detail. Until recently, she had never questioned Dr. Langston's methods. His brilliance was undeniable, his success rates remarkable. But over the past few months, small inconsistencies had begun to trouble her. Supply records didn't match usage reports. Donor samples sometimes disappeared from storage without documentation. And occasionally, when reviewing patient files, she noticed unusual notations. A small VL followed by numbers that appeared in no other fertility clinic's documentation. Probably just a shorthand for tracking success metrics, her colleague suggested when Clara mentioned it. But something about the pattern nagged at her conscience. The confirmation came on a Tuesday evening in March. Clara had stayed late to complete quarterly reports when she heard voices from the private laboratory, Dr. Langston and Ryan, a new lab technician. "But the donor profile says he's 5 feet 10 inches with brown eyes," Ryan was saying, his voice hesitant. "This sample, are you questioning my methods?" Dr. Langston interrupted, his normally warm voice suddenly cold. "The specifics of donor matching are my responsibility. Your job is to follow protocol exactly as instructed." "Yes, sir. But the regulations don't account for my specialized techniques," Langston cut in. 25 years of success speaks for itself. "Just process the samples as labeled and update the records with my notation system." Clara froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The exchange confirmed her growing fears. Something was fundamentally wrong with their procedures. Over the next week, she watched Dr. Langston more carefully. She noticed how he always handled certain samples personally. How he sometimes emerged from his private lab with vials that hadn't been logged in the intake system. Her breaking point came when Dr. Langston left early for a medical conference, accidentally leaving his office unlocked. Clara had never invaded anyone's privacy before, but her duty to patients overshadowed her discomfort. Inside his desk drawer, she found a locked metal box. The key was hidden beneath a false bottom in another drawer, a hiding place she knew about only because she'd once helped him retrieve a spare office key from it. Her hands shook as she opened the box. Inside lay a USB drive and a leather-bound notebook. The notebook contained hundreds of entries, each with a code matching the mysterious notations in patient files. Each entry included birth dates and locations of children she had helped bring into the world. The USB drive contained digital records going back decades, detailed tracking of every child conceived with what the files clearly identified as VL genetic material. Clara sat motionless, the evidence of decades of deception spread before her. Dr. Langston, her mentor and friend, had violated the most sacred trust in medicine. He had secretly fathered dozens, perhaps hundreds, of children without consent. "What do I do now?" she whispered to the empty office. Her career, her reputation, her relationship with colleagues, everything would be destroyed if she exposed him. But the faces of countless trusting patients flashed through her mind. Families who deserve the truth. Clara carefully photographed key pages, copied the USB drive, and returned everything exactly as she had found it. Her decision was made. The consequences would be devastating, but silence was no longer an option. Finding the genetic connection group wasn't difficult for Clara. Their private Facebook group had grown, and through a hospital colleague whose daughter had recently discovered her biological connections, Clara made contact with Emma Calloway. They met in a park far from the clinic, Clara constantly glancing over her shoulder. "I've worked with Dr. Langston for over 2 decades, Clara began, her voice barely above a whisper. "What I've discovered confirms your suspicions and worse." She showed Emma the photographs of Dr. Langston's records. The color drained from Emma's face as she scrolled through image after image of coded entries, each representing a child, a family, a violation. "There are over 70 of you," Clara explained. "Possibly more. He's been doing this since 1992. Within days, Clara met with the core members of the half-sibling group. The meeting room they'd rented buzzed with tension as she revealed the extent of Dr. Langston's deception. "His private records track all of you, your births, locations, even some of your academic achievements," Clara explained. "He views you as his legacy, his creations." Tyler, the attorney, spoke first. "We need more than internal records. We need official investigation, DNA confirmation, and testimonies from other clinic staff. And we need someone who can tell this story properly," Emma added. "Someone with credibility and reach." Mia suggested contacting Diane Reynolds, an investigative journalist known for exposing medical fraud. She broke the story on pharmaceutical testing violations last year. She knows how to handle sensitive medical stories. When they reached out, Reynolds responded immediately. "This isn't just a story," she told them during their first meeting. "This is a systematic violation of reproductive rights that demands justice." Reynolds approached the investigation methodically. She interviewed former employees, consulted with medical ethicists, and reviewed the evidence Clara had provided. She arranged for independent DNA testing to confirm the biological relationships between the half-siblings and, crucially, sought a way to establish Dr. Langston's paternity without his knowledge. The breakthrough came through his college-aged nephew, who had recently taken a commercial DNA test. The nephew's results showed a surprisingly close relationship to Emma and the others, one that could only be explained if his uncle were their biological father. As evidence mounted, the emotional weight on everyone grew heavier. During one group video call, a member broke down. "I don't even know who I am anymore," sobbed Rachel, a 19-year-old student. "Everything I understood about my identity feels like a lie." For Clara, the investigation meant the end of her career at the clinic. She took a leave of absence, unable to face Dr. Langston knowing what she now knew. "I keep wondering how I missed the signs for so long," she confessed to Emma. "How many families could I have protected if I'd realized sooner?" The half-siblings experienced a roller coaster of emotions: anger at the violation, confusion about their identities, unexpected connection with newfound relatives, and anxiety about the public exposure to come. "We didn't ask for any of this," Jason said during one meeting. "But now we have a responsibility to stop him before more families are deceived." For Reynolds, the story represented the most complex ethical investigation of her career. "We're not just exposing one doctor's misconduct," she told her editor. "We're revealing how an entire medical system failed to protect vulnerable families during their most intimate decisions." 3 months after Clara first contacted Emma, Reynolds had compiled a comprehensive investigation file. With DNA evidence, internal records, and testimony from multiple sources, they were ready to make the story public. The group braced for the explosion that would follow. If you're finding this story as shocking as I did, make sure to share it with someone who appreciates true crime stories. How would you feel discovering a medical professional had violated your trust so completely? The next part of our story reveals how the truth finally came to light, and the immediate aftermath that followed. The headline sprawled across the front page of the National Herald. Trusted fertility doctor secretly fathered dozens of children using own sperm. Diane Reynolds' meticulous investigation, published simultaneously online and in print, sent shockwaves through the medical community and beyond. Within hours, every major news network picked up the story. Security footage showed reporters swarming the entrance to Langston Fertility Center as stunned patients arrived for appointments, many learning the news from journalists shouting questions. Dr. Langston violated the most fundamental trust between doctor and patient, declared the American Medical Association president in an emergency press conference. If these allegations are proven true, they represent an unconscionable breach of ethics. Social media exploded with outrage. Former patients flooded the clinic's phone lines, demanding answers and testing. Current patients canceled appointments en masse. The clinic's perfect online rating plummeted as one-star reviews accumulated by the minute. For Olivia and Marcus Bennett, the news couldn't have come at a more devastating time. Olivia was 8 weeks pregnant after their first treatment with Dr. Langston, a miracle they had celebrated just days earlier. "I can't stop thinking about whose baby I'm carrying," Olivia whispered, curled on their couch as the television continued broadcasting details of the scandal. "What if it's his?" Marcus paced their living room, alternating between rage and stunned disbelief. "We trusted him completely. How could he do this to families who just wanted children?" Their phones buzzed constantly with concerned messages from friends and family who recognized them as Langston patients. Each notification felt like another blow to their privacy, their joy now tainted by public scandal. Dr. Langston initially responded with calculated indignation. From the steps of his home, he read a prepared statement. "These outrageous accusations are categorically false. My life's work has been helping families conceive healthy children. I have never violated patient trust or medical protocols." His confident denial lasted exactly 27 hours. Reynolds' second article delivered overwhelming evidence. Genetic test results linking him to numerous children, the detailed records Clara had discovered, testimony from former lab technicians who had noticed irregularities but feared reporting them, and most damning, a former colleague who admitted witnessing Langston switch samples. Cornered by mounting evidence, Dr. Langston retreated into his mansion, refusing further comment as his lawyer issued a revised statement claiming procedural misunderstandings and occasional emergency protocols when donor samples proved non-viable. The damage control attempts collapsed when 3 former patients filed the first official police report, formally accusing him of fraud and assault. By week's end, the Langston Fertility Center temporarily closed its doors. The doctor who had built his reputation on creating families now faced the destruction of his own legacy and potential criminal charges that could send him to prison. The class action lawsuit against Dr. Victor Langston became one of the largest medical malpractice cases in state history. 74 families joined as plaintiffs, represented by a team of attorneys specializing in reproductive rights violations. "This isn't merely about medical fraud," lead attorney Catherine Moss explained during a press conference. "This represents a profound violation of bodily autonomy, informed consent, and the sacred trust between doctor and patient." The courtroom fell silent as Emma Calloway took the witness stand. Poised despite the cameras and packed gallery, she faced Dr. Langston directly. "You believed your genes were superior to those of the donors my parents selected," she said, her voice steady. "You made that choice for them, for all these families, without consent. You decided our genetic heritage based on your ego." She gestured toward the gallery where dozens of her half-siblings sat. "We're not your legacy. We're not your achievement. We're human beings who deserved better than to be part of your unauthorized experiment in genetic narcissism." Her testimony, broadcast nationally, crystallized the human impact of Langston's actions. Public opinion, already against him, hardened further. The medical board didn't wait for the trial's conclusion. In an emergency hearing, they permanently revoked Langston's license, citing grave ethical violations incompatible with medical practice. Criminal charges followed, multiple counts of fraud and battery. The prosecution argued that procedures performed under false pretenses constituted assault. The jury agreed. Dr. Victor Langston, once celebrated on magazine covers, was sentenced to 12 years in prison and ordered to pay $24 million in restitution to affected families. "No financial compensation can repair the profound breach of trust these families experienced," the judge noted during sentencing. but perhaps this verdict provides a measure of justice and closure. For the Bennetts, the weeks following the scandal brought excruciating uncertainty. DNA testing confirmed their worst fears. The child Olivia carried was biologically Dr. Langston's, not Marcus's. After days of heart-wrenching conversations and counseling sessions, they made their decision. "This baby didn't choose its origins," Marcus said, holding Olivia's hand during their follow-up appointment with a new fertility specialist. "We still want to be parents. We're keeping our child." Olivia nodded, tears tracking down her cheeks. "The biology doesn't change our love or commitment. This is still our baby." Their decision wasn't universal. Some affected families chose termination, others pursued adoption. Each family faced personal choices with no universal right answer, only the aftermath of choices that should never have been forced upon them. The Langston case triggered sweeping reforms in reproductive medicine. State legislators fast-tracked the Reproductive Transparency Act, requiring strict documentation of all genetic material used in fertility treatments. The law mandated videotaped procedures, dual verification protocols, and criminal background checks for all fertility specialists. The FDA implemented new national guidelines requiring DNA verification of donor samples and regular audits of fertility clinics. Insurance companies began covering DNA verification as a standard post-treatment procedure. This case exposed critical gaps in oversight, explained Dr. Melanie Huang, who chaired the medical ethics committee that drafted the new standards. These reforms ensure no doctor can ever violate patient trust in this way again. Meanwhile, the half-siblings transformed their trauma into purpose. What began as the Genetic Connection Support Group evolved into the Reproductive Justice Foundation, a nonprofit advocating for patients' rights and ethical practices in fertility medicine. "We didn't choose this connection," Emma explained during a TED Talk that garnered over 2 million views. "But we've chosen to use our shared experience to protect future families." Their foundation provided counseling resources for affected families, lobbied for legislative changes, and created educational materials on genetic ethics for medical schools. Clara Hastings emerged as an unexpected champion for medical whistleblowers. Though her career at Langston Fertility Center ended, her courageous choice to expose the truth earned her recognition from ethics organizations. She began consulting with hospitals on creating safe reporting systems for staff who suspect misconduct. "Medical professionals must prioritize patient welfare above institutional loyalty," she testified before a congressional committee. "We need robust protections for those who speak out." For the families directly impacted, healing took different forms. Some joined advocacy efforts, others sought privacy. Many formed lasting bonds with newfound biological relatives, creating extended family networks that transcended their traumatic origins. The Bennetts welcomed their daughter, Lily, 8 months after the scandal broke. They joined a special support group for families raising Langston's biological children, a community united by shared experience and determination to build loving homes despite the painful circumstances of conception. The legacy of Dr. Langston's betrayal ultimately became one of reform, resilience, and reclaimed agency for patients in one of medicine's most intimate fields. The Langston case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about vulnerability in healthcare. When we seek medical treatment, particularly for deeply personal matters like fertility, we place extraordinary trust in professionals. This trust forms the foundation of medicine itself, and when violated, the damage extends beyond individual patients to our collective faith in healthcare systems. The story highlights 3 critical lessons about medical ethics. First, transparency must be non-negotiable in all procedures involving genetic material. Second, robust oversight systems need to include protections for whistleblowers like Clara. Third, patients deserve complete agency in reproductive choices, no exceptions. Perhaps most remarkable was how the victims transformed their trauma into meaningful change. Rather than being defined by victimhood, Emma and her half-siblings created nationwide reforms that will protect countless future families. The Bennetts' decision to embrace their child despite its origins demonstrated profound love and resilience. These families didn't choose their circumstances, but they chose their response, channeling pain into purpose and refusing to let one doctor's betrayal define their lives or identities. Their story reminds us that identity transcends genetics. While DNA provides biological blueprints, our true selves emerge through choices, relationships, and how we face adversity. The half-siblings discovered that biology connected them, but compassion and courage united them. This story shows how quickly trust can be betrayed. If you found this valuable, subscribe to Mr. Body Crime for more true crime stories with important life lessons. Hit the notification bell so you never miss what is coming next. In the end, truth, however painful, offers the only path to healing. When these families courageously confronted reality, they reclaimed power over their narratives and transformed a devastating betrayal into a legacy of justice, protection, and hope.